Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we are pulling back the curtain on enterprise workflow automation.
Mm,
We're focusing on a huge decision that IT leaders, development managers, well, that they all face,
right?
how to knit all these complex organizational systems together. Specifically, we're comparing Microsoft Power Automate, the giant in the room,
Yeah.
against a very flexible, code-centric challenger, n8n.
And this is a deep dive that, it goes straight to the heart of the budget.
It always does.
We're not just comparing, features or connector counts. We are analyzing this fundamental tension between a highly governed low-code platform like Power Automate and the open, customizable world of solutions like n8n.
Okay.
Our mission is really to map out the cost-optimized path that gives you massive scalability while completely avoiding those crippling financial and technical cliffs.
Because these tools are just built on completely different philosophies. That's what the sources show, right? Especially when it comes to licensing and total cost of ownership.
Or TCO. Yep.
And by TCO, we mean the full operational spend, not just the subscription.
Exactly.
You need to know which tool is just a nice free benefit for personal productivity and which one you actually need for those high-volume, system-to-system data tasks. It's not always obvious.
Not at all.
Okay, let's unpack this. And I think we have to start where the pain usually begins, the sheer complexity of Microsoft licensing.
The complexity is, it's legendary.
Right.
In Power Automate, your ability to automate, your cost, it's tied strictly to two things.
Okay.
The identity of the user who's running the flow and the type of connector that flow touches. This intentional complexity is exactly how organizations get blindsided by what we call the premium cliff.
All right, so let's define this cliff. What are the license tiers, and where are those hard ceilings hiding?
Okay, so you start with the most common level, the seated license.
The one that comes with Microsoft 365.
Exactly. If you have M365, E3, or E5, you already have this. It feels free, but it's really only intended for personal productivity.
Like syncing my calendar or getting an email alert?
Precisely. And it only uses standard connectors. The ceiling here is, it's unbelievably low for anything systemic. We're talking 6,000 requests per day.
6,000.
And while they might let you temporarily burst up to 10,000, you have to architect for that hard 6,000 limit.
Wow, that is microscopic. So if I build an automation to process a daily report, say it touches 500 items and each item needs, 12 connector calls to query a list, format the output, send a notification, I've just used my entire 6,000 requests in a single 5-minute run.
You're done for the day.
If that flow runs twice, I'm over the limit.
You are absolutely over the limit. And as soon as you trip that wire, you are forced onto the next tier.
Which is?
The Power Automate Premium license. This one is identity-based. It runs about $15 per user per month.
Okay.
The payoff is huge, though. You get access to all those critical premium and custom connectors, and your capacity jumps way up to 40,000 requests per 24 hours per user.
That feels a lot better. But even 40,000 requests can disappear pretty quickly if you have a few developers building heavy integration flows.
Sure, if they're running continuously.
So if I have a departmental team of, say, 50 people, and they all need access to flows that touch premium data, I'm suddenly looking at $750 a month in recurring fees.
And that leads us perfectly to the crucial third tier, the process license.
The architectural solution.
Yes, this is the solution for high volume or broad access. Instead of licensing the person, you license the automation artifact itself.
Okay, so the flow itself is licensed.
The flow. It costs about $150 per bot per month.
Mm-hmm.
And the jump in capacity is massive. You're looking at a solid 250,000 requests per 24 hours.
Okay, so if I have that departmental flow that 50 people rely on, I can ditch the $750 in premium user licenses.
Right.
And just pay $150 for the process license instead. That makes perfect sense.
Precisely. That $150 is basically the firewall against licensing chaos. But now let's talk about what forces you into those higher tiers no matter what your volume is.
The premium connectors.
This is the true financial showstopper.
So which ones are the immediate, non-negotiable cost triggers?
Well, the moment an organization needs to integrate systems that are, foundational to IT operations or serious data handling, the meter starts running.
For example?
The Azure DevOps connector, ADO, is premium.
Oh, wow.
So if you're automating ticket creation, syncing data between Jira and ADO, or kicking off pipeline runs, you need a process or premium license. You simply cannot run IT ops on the free tier.
Wait, hold on. Azure DevOps is a Microsoft product.
It is.
And it's a premium connector for another Microsoft automation tool. That seems counterintuitive.
It's a very intentional architectural decision. It's the same with SQL Server.
The backbone of everything.
For decades of enterprise data, yes. It's also premium. Any flow querying or writing to an internal SQL database instantly needs a paid license.
Okay.
But here's the one that really frustrates developers, the generic HTTP connector.
The one you use to call any API.
The one used to bypass missing connectors, exactly. It's also classified as premium.
So there's no escape.
You are functionally unable to run serious custom API integration work for free.
Okay, here's where it gets really interesting. Let's talk about that nightmare scenario for architects. The multiplexing showstopper.
Ah, yes.
This is the huge compliance bomb just hiding in the license agreement.
This is the risk that keeps budget controllers up at night. The multiplexing rule basically means that if one person with a premium license builds a flow, and that flow provides a service to lots of unlicensed users, Microsoft sees those unlicensed users as needing a premium license themselves.
Can you give us a concrete scenario? How does this actually happen?
Okay, imagine you build a crucial flow that writes data from a Power App front end to the premium SQL Server connector.
Right.
And that Power App is used by, say, 500 standard M365 users who only have the basic seated license.
So they're all funneling through this one premium connection.
They are all touching the premium functionality through your single flow.
Yeah.
Microsoft may audit that, see it as non-compliant, and demand that all 500 of those users be licensed for premium.
You're telling me a single $15 flow could create what would that be? A $7,500 a month compliance liability.
Precisely. 500 users times $15 a month.
Right.
That is the compliance risk.
Wow.
And the only reliable way to fix it is to use that $150 per month process license. It licenses the artifact for the whole organization, decoupling the cost from the user. Turns out that $150 is often the cheapest insurance policy you can buy.
So beyond the licensing maze, the sources also highlight some pretty clear technical issues for Power Automate, especially with heavy data loads.
Right. It's just not built for that kind of performance. The system uses a throttling mechanism called the token bucket algorithm.
Okay.
If your flow uses up too many resources on Microsoft's shared backend, like if you're trying to process a 50 megabyte JSON file, a huge data transformation, you start losing tokens.
And when you're out of tokens?
Your flow gets deprioritized, suspended, or just fails for being a noisy neighbor. Concurrency is also capped, usually at only 50 parallel threads in a loop. For what developers call ETL extract, transform, and load, it's just ill-suited.
And for those less familiar, ETL is basically just taking huge amounts of data from System A, cleaning it up, changing its format, that's the transform part, and then stuffing it into System B.
Exactly. It needs raw computational power. Power Automate is excellent for human-centric workflows. But for pure, high-volume machine-to-machine data processing, you will hit a technical ceiling that even the most expensive license can't solve.
Okay, so if Power Automate is fighting us with throttling and request limits just to move a heavy data set, that has to be exactly where n8n shines.
It is.
So what does this all mean for n8n, which runs on this fair code model?
Well, n8n's appeal starts right at its licensing. It uses the sustainable use license.
Okay.
This explicitly lets an organization download, self-host, and use the community edition for any internal business purposes completely free.
So I can link my CRM, my ERP, internal databases, and not pay a single software license fee to n8n.
Correct. The only restrictions are if you try to commercialize the software itself, like, selling workflow as a service to your own customers.
Yeah. That sounds like a dream. Infinite volume, no licensing cost, full control. But the sources are pretty quick to point out that free software isn't the same as zero TCO.
Not even close.
Where do the costs sneak back in?
The cost shifts entirely from software licenses to infrastructure and labor. Power Automate is serverless, a platform as a service. Microsoft handles all of that.
Right.
With n8n, you provide the dedicated infrastructure, and it comes with some specific, non-negotiable requirements for production.
What are we talking about minimum specs for a stable environment?
The sources are very clear. You need a minimum of 4 gigs of RAM, but honestly, HEB is strongly recommended.
Why so much memory?
It's a Node.js application, and it loads execution data into memory during a run. For CPU, you need 2 to 4 vCPU cores. But the one people often overlook is storage.
Okay.
You absolutely must use high-performance NVMe SSDs, maybe 40 to 80 gigs, for your persistent logs.
Why NVMe specifically? Can't I just use standard disk storage for logs?
No, not for high-volume scenarios. If you're running the kind of automation where n8n wins,
Right.
the system is constantly writing logs to disk. If you use slow storage, you create an immediate performance bottleneck. It completely undermines the whole point of using n8n. for high throughput.
And the database, I assume?
Absolutely not optional. The default Squite database is fine for testing, but it's totally unsuitable for production. You need a dedicated PostgreSQL instance. Mandatory.
This all sounds like a lot of ongoing work. Let's quantify this DevOps tax. The hidden labor cost.
This is the soft cost that directly replaces Microsoft's licensing fee. You're now on the hook for everything. Container orchestration, monitoring, security patching for the OS, and the Node.js runtime.
Your own database backups, disaster recovery, the whole 9 yards.
It's not trivial. The sources estimate this can consume 10 to 20 hours of dedicated DevOps engineering time per month.
Wait, and that translates to what? $1,000 to $2,000 a month just in soft labor costs. That feels high. Couldn't one engineer manage a few instances in less time?
It really depends on your required availability. If this is a business-critical system needing high availability, failover guaranteed uptimes, those figures are realistic. That time estimate includes on-call support, continuous patching, everything.
So your TCO calculation has to include that.
It has to. If you only need 5 hours a month, fine, your soft cost is lower, but your risk exposure is way higher.
And then there's the governance price floor. The Community Edition is free to run, but that lack of control, that's a huge headache.
This is the critical weakness. The Community Edition has no built-in role-based access control RBAC or single sign-on.
Meaning everyone has the keys to the kingdom.
Pretty much. A junior user could accidentally edit or delete a mission-critical financial workflow. To solve that with native features, you have to jump to the business plan.
And that costs.
It starts around $667 a month.
Yeah.
Roughly $800 a year.
So that price tag basically wipes out the free software advantage unless your volume is so huge that the Microsoft licenses would cost more than that.
That's the threshold.
Exactly. Let's shift gears to development velocity. What's the actual experience like for the people building these flows?
Power Automate definitely shines with the citizen developer, the person who prefers a GUI. But for complex logic, debugging is, well, it's excruciating.
How so?
It's like trying to find one faulty light bulb in a string of 500 by turning the entire neighborhood's power off and on every single time.
You have to run the whole flow from the beginning.
The entire flow, end to end, just to test one small variable change. Then you have to click through the run history, action by action, after the fact. There's no real-time visibility.
And n8n is the complete opposite.
It leans heavily toward the pro code user. Its core strength is the code node, which lets you manipulate everything with standard JavaScript or TypeScript.
Giving you more control.
Superior control. But the biggest speed boost is the ability to execute individual nodes during design. You can hit play on one tiny step, infinitely see the output data, and fix it before the rest of the workflow even runs. It just drastically speeds up that development loop.
So for complex logic or heavy data transformation, n8n is faster, as long as the user has some basic scripting knowledge.
No question.
But since we know the free edition is a governance risk, what are the mandatory architectural mitigations you have to put in place?
Since the software doesn't provide it, you have to build governance around it. First, you implement a segregated instance model.
Meaning?
Instead of one giant n8n server, you deploy separate containers. n8n for IT ops, n8n for finance, n8n for HR. This prevents the noisy neighbor problem and stops one team from breaking another's critical workflow.
Adds overhead, but contains the risk. What about quality control? An audit trail?
For that, you need a GitOps management strategy. Developers build and test in a dev instance. Then they export the workflow JSON file and commit it to a Git repository.
And a pipeline deploys it to production?
A CI/CD pipeline, yes. It imports that JSON into a lockdown production instance. Deployment then requires a formal pull request approval. That enforces quality control and gives you the audit trail the free tier is missing.
And finally, secrets. API keys, database passwords, where do they live?
You must mandate a strict environment variable strategy. All sensitive credentials exist only as environment variables on the server host.
So they're never in the UI?
Never in the UI, never in the JSON exports that get committed to Git. And IT can rotate keys without developers ever having to edit a single flow.
Okay, that gives a really clear picture of the trade-offs. On one side, expensive licenses but instant governance. On the other, free software but expensive labor and a lot of architectural work. Let's summarize the strategic recommendations for the listener.
Sounds good.
When should you definitely choose Power Automate?
If the process is highly human-centric, simple approvals, or if you need deep integration with the Microsoft Graph and M365 DLP policies, choose Power Automate with seated or premium licensing. That zero-friction connection to Office 365 is its unbeatable advantage.
But if that process needs premium connectors, like Azure DevOps or SQL, and it has to serve lots of people without that multiplexing liability,
Then you choose Power Automate with the process license. That $150 per flow is a predictable, manageable cost that shields you from thousands in potential user licensing fees. It creates a stable spend.
and where does N8 clearly win for the heavy lifting?
Absolutely. For pure machine-centric tasks, high-volume ETL, API to API sync, or complex logic that would blow past Power Automate's request ceilings, you choose n8n.
And you start with a pilot.
You deploy a pilot n8n Community Edition strictly for the technical backend, managed by IT Ops. This removes the capacity constraints. You're only limited by your hardware and your DevOps team's time.
So the overall analysis from the sources really points to a hybrid architecture.
That's where they converge.
Yeah.
Use Power Automate for the business front end, the quick, governed human processes, and deploy n8n Community Edition as the technical backend, managed with strict GitOps protocols by your pro IT teams.
Right.
This strategy minimizes your licensing spend on the high-volume stuff while still leveraging Microsoft's governance and connectivity where it matters most.
A fantastic analysis. This gives you a clear framework to decide where to invest your capital, either in expensive licenses for low friction or in DevOps engineering time for high performance and low software cost.
That's the choice.
We'll leave you with one final provocative thought to consider this week. If the cost of governance and infrastructure support in a free tool like n8n can approach $2,000 a month, how high does your automation volume need to be before that choice truly saves you money over simply paying Microsoft? Something for you to mull over until our next deep dive.